Ka-ching, ka-ching, Richie. Yes, welcome to this week's Movie Math, where apparently its box office numbers float too. And coming off of one of the worst summers ever for Hollywood, all of Tinseltown was mighty grateful to Warner Brothers for making it rain. And the studio does continue to have one heck of a year, although Sony Marvel just seriously undercut their crowning achievement, which we will discuss. Spidey fans who've been tweeting me all weekend, we will discuss. But first, yes, all of Hollywood is dancing along with Pennywise, as it seems when they do make an effort, from the movie itself to picking a release date to the ad campaign, moviegoing is very much alive, something that's been up for debate the last couple of weeks, because again, summer was that bad. But this weekend, it's as if the whole country decided together we're going to see it, turning the Stephen King adaptation, as I tweeted, into a cultural event. By the way, when polled, most audience members said that they did turn out for the film because of the Stephen King brand, further proving what my source told me about the sequel, and that's that Warner Brothers just ain't going to shell out the big bucks for big names that they don't need. And I continue to believe that will be the case. Now, unfortunately, Florida, and to some degree still Texas, had to give rain checks for this party. And if it weren't for Harvey and Irma, it could very well have toppled Deadpool's record for the biggest opening ever for an R-rated movie. As it is, they already took down two of Deadpool's records, and that's for an R-rated film, Thursday night previews and opening day, raising the bar for the upcoming Deadpool sequel. That sequel's having a tough time. And it also proves that there's a lot of money in them that are R-rated films, especially if they appeal to kids. I agree with one of you who also tweeted me over the weekend that it would be up to families to make or break it, just as they did with Deadpool. And the cast of all kids, I think, certainly helped get families into the theater, just as a popular superhero did. And as you can see, the formula begins to take shape. All ages subject matter with therefore mass appeal, but in adult packaging so it seems cutting edge and not cookie cutter. That actually sounds like an excellent formula, and expect to see more of that type of movie come out of Hollywood because Hollywood loves a good formula. By the way, all ages doesn't mean kids, it means literally all ages, and that's exactly who showed up for it. While most horror films play to the under 25 set, 65% of its audience was over 25, and the audience was also split down the middle when it comes to men and women. And with such mass appeal, in a single day, it was able to topple the previous record holders for both the biggest opening weekend of September and pretty much the biggest opening weekend for a horror film. Now, surely, already on Thursday night when those numbers came in on Friday morning, well, you know what? They get published Friday morning, but they have almost real-time returns that the studios keep an eye on. And I'm sure Warner Brothers breathed a sigh of relief because expectations were, of course, through the roof for this film, although those expectations, the projections for the box office turned out to actually be conservative. But it was all propelled by the fact that it is the most watched trailer ever in its first 24 hours. So the fact that that translated into such boffo box office is very encouraging for Thor Ragnarok, the upcoming Thor Ragnarok, which is the third most watched trailer ever in 24 hours. So far on that list, only 50 Shades Darker and Transformers The Last Night didn't have their boffo trailer views translate into boffo box office. And even with Last Night, its overseas numbers were still not horrible. 50 Shades is the only one that really was an anomaly. But while this is good news for Thor Ragnarok, Paramount's mother should be terrified. It opens this coming weekend, and for some reason they decided to run the most desperate trailer I've ever seen in front of it. It ended with the title card, literally, after you see this movie, go to the box office and buy tickets for Mother. They might as well have ended with, if you don't see this movie, you're a loser, and that would have totally fit the theming for the weekend, right? Now, Stranger Things, I think, should also be a tad nervous, because while they certainly paved the way for it, in fact, the Duffer Brothers only made Stranger Things because they didn't get this gig, has Andy Muschietti's film outpaced them? Stranger Things Season 2 could seem like child's play after this film, which definitely went there across the board. Plus, as the It sequel begins to come together, deals are already being signed, casting announcements for the adult members of the Losers Club, which you could see already announced. I mean, it might seem early to you, but they're going to want to keep the interest in this movie going, especially because, as we're going to discuss, September is very competitive. So wouldn't it be great to keep it in the headlines? And that's one way to do so. So as everyone starts talking about the adult members of the sequel, an all-kids cast like Stranger Things is still stuck with, damn, seem like old news. But then again, audiences could be thirsty for more. They have about 2 months until Stranger Things Season 2 debuts, and perhaps that season kicks it up a notch as well. So maybe there's enough for everyone here. Now, on a side note, the one deal that's been signed so far for It Chapter 2 is screenwriter Gary Dauberman, who currently has 2 horror movies in the top 10. This is a name that you should know. So look for his Hollywood stock to rise considerably, as he not only wrote the first Annabelle, I know some of you didn't like that, I liked it a lot, but he's also writing the upcoming The Nun, so this means he's a James Wan guy. James Wan, doing a lot of heavy lifting for Warner Brothers in terms of discovering talent. But if Gary Dauberman has any interest in directing, that should be his next ask after he finishes the script for It Chapter 2. And we all know Warner Brothers is very loyal to talent in front of and behind the camera, sometimes to their own detriment, and they love to make sure that talent stays in-house. So Dauberman, ask for the stars! I think you've legitimately earned it. Now, finally, with It, as it kicks off what looks to be the best September ever at the box office, some in the trades were wondering if maybe Warner Brothers was a little selfish not to open this the first weekend in August, that wild card slot, which has traditionally propped up the back end of the summer. And of course, as we discussed, because The Dark Tower took that spot, it really totally made August collapse box office numbers wise. So again, some people were saying, well, maybe Warner Brothers should have put It there. But here's the problem. Warner Brothers, of course, the studio behind It, already had the IMAX screens on lockdown for Dunkirk. And It, by the way, did very good business on IMAX. So that was a problem. Plus, I think that with the movie's third act taking place at the very end of summer, featuring a bunch of school kids who talk about school. There are some school scenes at the beginning of the movie. And with the chill of September in the air and everyone excited about Halloween on the horizon, the post-Labor Day spot was perfect. Although again, because Hollywood loves a formula, expect this to perhaps become a major movie-going weekend going forward, just as 50 Shades, Deadpool, and Kingsman helped transform February into a major movie-going month. Perhaps this is September's chance, okay? However, interestingly, because this is such an unusually competitive September, while It would have had all of August to itself, it'll be interesting to see if all movies are victorious this month, or if some get dragged down to the box office sewers. Now, last week here on Movie Math, we talked about how Warner Brothers was the biggest studio of the summer, with the summer's most successful movie domestically, Wonder Woman. And even though the domestic record holds, Sony Marvel, as I said in the opening, just seriously took Wonder Woman down a peg, maybe even a couple of pegs, because Spider-Man Homecoming, as we've been waiting for, many of you have really been waiting for it, it finally hit China this weekend, and it webbed up a lot of cash. This is a fascinating situation. All right, so yes, in a single weekend in the Middle Kingdom, Spidey was able to swing past Wonder Woman at the global box office. Oh, that's so bad! And that now makes Wonder Woman third for the summer when it comes to superhero movies, and fourth overall as Despicable Me 3 from Universal just became the third $1 billion club member of the year. And unless War for the Planet of the Apes, which opens in China this coming weekend, seriously slows its momentum there, Spider-Man Homecomings, Tom Holland and company could get awfully close to $1 billion themselves. Maybe they could even join the $1 billion club. But I have to say already, Sony can feel that the second reboot was worth it now, as worldwide it's only behind Spider-Man 3 when it comes to the Spider-Man movies overall. That's fantastic. But luckily for Warner Brothers and Wonder Woman, they already got a slew of great headlines out of their summer box office run. And for a number of people, that narrative is already cemented in place, right? And it's unfortunate that the Spidey surge is so late. I mean, it would have certainly been better for Spider-Man Homecoming to not open in China 2 months after it opened everywhere else. And this highlights that while Disney has no problem getting day-and-date releases in the Middle Kingdom, Japan-owned Sony Pictures does have a problem. And of course, it's very well known that Japan and China are not BFFs. And in fact, you might remember that last summer, Ghostbusters couldn't even get a Chinese release date. Maybe that would have changed the fortunes of Ghostbusters, literally, and everyone who's involved with it, right? And you might recall that China's excuse was that they have a problem with ghosts. But then how do they explain that this summer, Disney's Ghost Pirates pulled in almost $200 million in the Middle Kingdom? This reveals a seriously huge handicap for Sony Pictures in their slate as the movie business becomes more global, and China is the second biggest movie market and apparently hates them. All right. So I'm very curious to what you think about that. And I wonder, a number of you were like, okay, can you now call Spider-Man Homecoming a winner instead of a flop? I wouldn't certainly call it a flop anymore, and I actually wouldn't call it a box office disappointment. I said once it passed $800 million, it would be considered a success, and I stand by that. But I still don't, if it gets into the $1 billion club, or even to $900 million, then that's really amazing. And also Sony should seriously take a look at their release strategy and their relationship with China's film board, and because that's who decides who gets the release dates. But this was a major problem for them that these headlines came so late, and then allowed Wonder Woman to get all the attention in terms of the summer box office. Because you're not going to see, I think, a huge number of headlines for Spidey unless now it gets into 900 or joins the $1 billion club. So that's something that Sony's going to have to really fix going forward for when Spider-Man's a part of their movies. When Spider-Man's part of the MCU, apparently Disney and China are like this, so it's not a problem. All right, so as for this weekend's stateside top 10, Home Again came in right where expected, although, of course, it was counter-programming, but it surely didn't help the movie that as showings of it sold out across the country, theaters simply added more showings of it. It was funny, actually, to look at Fandango and see just more and more showtimes float to the surface. That resulted in huge drops across the board for summer leftovers, but hey, it's time for them to clear the board anyway for the upcoming number of not only the usual award contenders, but a surprising number of commercial entries as well. Oh boy! I'm so excited. And as for this coming weekend, while it will surely hold on to the top spot, I'm actually very interested to see what its hold will be. It could be quite strong considering all these records that were broken in the buzz. And again, if Warner Brothers can keep it in the headlines all weekend long with sequel deals, etc., maybe some casting, it's very exciting. It'll be interesting to see how Warner Brothers plays this. They're in the zone. They got to make up for this Wonder Woman embarrassment. Let's do this. But anyway, Mother is not expected to be the runner-up. Oh, that's bad for Jennifer Lawrence, boy. She does not need that bad headline. But Michael Keaton will take a good headline, as it seems that his comeback might finally have some traction. And so that's this week's Movie Math. Thanks so much for going over the box office with me. Be sure to write your thoughts down below, as well as what movie you plan to see this coming weekend. Will you finally see it if you missed it? Will you see it for a second time? Maybe you'll see American Assassin or Mother. Again, share that down below. And as always, you can check out some more videos right now.